October 19th, 1978, the night sky above Bass Strait was eerily calm until 20-year-old pilot Frederick Valentich spoke into the Melbourne control tower, his voice already trembling. "I'm observing an object of irregular shape. It has a greenish glow, no visible wings, and it's moving silently. It's not any aircraft I know." A tense silence fell. Static crackled in the headset. Seconds later, Valentich whispered, his words nearly choked with fear. "It's back above me! It's closing in fast!" Then contact was lost forever. His aircraft vanished without a trace. That authentic recording, and the countless eyewitness reports of bright stationary lights drifting over the sea, still leave us with one haunting question. What was following Valentich that fateful night? October 21st, 1978. Southern Victoria, Australia. The day began without incident. Weather reports showed mild temperatures, calm winds, and clear skies across the southeastern coastline. No storm systems, no turbulence warnings. It was the kind of evening pilots pray for: smooth, stable, predictable. At Moorabbin Airport, one of Melbourne's busiest general aviation hubs, activity was winding down. Shadows were growing long across the tarmac as the sun dipped low in the sky, gilding the fuselages of parked planes with a warm amber glow. Mechanics packed up tools, instructors finished debriefings, weekend flyers rolled hangar doors shut. Among the remaining aircraft on the field stood a small white Cessna, 182L, tail number VH-DSJ, fueled, pre-flight checked, and humming softly. Its pilot, 20-year-old Frederick Valentich, was preparing for a cross-country flight across open sea. Valentich wasn't flying commercially. This wasn't a transport flight. His flight plan listed his destination as King Island, a windswept sliver of land midway between the Australian mainland and Tasmania, surrounded on all sides by the Bass Strait, a stretch of ocean with a notorious reputation among sailors and aviators alike. According to his paperwork, Valentich intended to pick up a few passengers and return later that night. But no one on King Island was expecting him. No passengers were listed. No accommodations booked. And when he lifted off at 6:19 p.m., only he knew why he had delayed departure until sunset, despite earlier requesting a daylight slot. Frederick Valentich wasn't careless. He had logged over 150 hours of flight time, was studying for his commercial license, and had completed his cross-country training requirements. But he wasn't confident either. His instructors described him as diligent but nervous, a stickler for rules, yet prone to stress in the cockpit. He had failed several exams and had a history of minor in-flight errors, but none of them suggested recklessness. What made Valentich unique, and what would later draw worldwide attention, was his belief in unidentified flying objects. Valentich had long been fascinated by the idea of UFOs. He had spoken about them with friends, read books and articles, and had even reported witnessing strange lights in the sky weeks before his final flight. To some, it was youthful curiosity. To others, an unhealthy fixation. At 6:19 p.m., Valentich taxied his aircraft onto the runway, received clearance, and ascended into the fading light. As the city shrank behind him, he turned southeast, crossing the Victorian coast, and entered open sky over one of the most unpredictable waterways in the southern hemisphere. The Bass Strait isn't just ocean. It's history. Violent winds, magnetic disturbances, powerful currents. A stretch of sea with a long record of shipwrecks, vanishing planes, and radar anomalies. Some pilots avoided entirely. Valentich didn't. As his Cessna climbed to 4,500 feet, he followed his charted course toward King Island. Below him, waves rolled endlessly. Ahead, only twilight and open air. The flight appeared calm, routine, unremarkable. Then, at 7:06 p.m., nearly 45 minutes after departure, Melbourne Flight Service received a transmission. "Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000? The response came quickly. "Delta Sierra Juliet, no known traffic." A few seconds passed. I have a large aircraft below me," Valentich continued. "It's flying very fast." The air traffic controller paused. This was unusual and unexplained. No radar contact showed other aircraft in the vicinity. No flight plans matched. "What type of aircraft?" the controller asked. "I cannot confirm," Valentich said. "It has a long shape, a sort of metallic surface. And there's a green light. It seems to be stationary. It's just hovering above me. The word hovering struck a nerve. Few aircraft in 1978 could hover, and none were in that airspace. It's now orbiting me, Valentich added. It's playing some sort of game, flying over me at high speed. I can't identify it. Then static. My engine is rough. The voice crackled, then returned faintly. And then came the final, unforgettable sentence. It's not an aircraft. That was the last intelligible message. What followed was 17 seconds of strange audio. Metallic scraping, inconsistent, grinding, eerie, recorded over the transmission channel. No mayday, no coordinates, no return call, just static, just silence, just a young pilot and a flight that vanished into nothing. The search had not yet begun, but the mystery had. 7:29 p.m. The last sounds fade from the Melbourne Flight Service channel, a long hiss of static, then nothing. The air traffic controller waits, headset pressed tight, hoping Valentich's voice will return. It doesn't. He repeats the call sign. Delta Sierra Juliet, do you copy? No answer. Seconds pass. Minutes. The controller reaches out to other stations along the southern coast. No one sees the Cessna. No radar returns. No secondary pings. The plane is gone. Not slowly, not gradually, but instantly, like a switch flipped off. They try again. Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. Please respond. Silence. By 8 p.m., panic moves quietly through the system. Within an hour, the Australian Air Force is informed. So is the Coast Guard. Within 3 hours, the Department of Transport escalates the situation from communication loss to emergency response. Search aircraft are scrambled from bases across southern Victoria. Helicopters launch from Cape Otway and Apollo Bay. Coastal surveillance vessels begin departure prep under dim red lights, their crews briefed and confused. No one knows what they're looking for, or where. The Bass Strait is vast, over 500 kilometers wide in some places, with unpredictable swells, dangerous undercurrents, and areas where sonar signals drop into blackness. But still, they search. From October 21st to October 25th, one of the largest maritime and aerial search operations in peacetime Australia unfolds. The numbers grow. 9 aircraft, 4 helicopters, 2 naval vessels, hundreds of crewmen, over 1,000 square miles of sea, scanned inch by inch. They comb beaches, survey cliff faces, scan sonar, look for oil slicks, listen for emergency beacons, question fishing trawlers, monitor birds circling above the waves. They find nothing. Not a single seat cushion, not a shard of aluminum, not a wheel strut, headset, or life vest. Nothing floats, nothing sinks, nothing surfaces. By the 5th day, the operation scales down. On the 6th, it is quietly suspended. Valentich is officially declared missing, presumed dead. Back in Melbourne, Frederick's family is living a nightmare with no script. His father, Guido Valentich, speaks to reporters, his hands shaking under the weight of loss and mystery. My son wasn't a fantasist. He believed in strange things, yes. But he wouldn't make up a disappearance. He wouldn't do that to us. They hold on to hope that maybe he ditched safely, that maybe he's stranded somewhere, that maybe someone, anyone, will call. But the phone doesn't ring, the ocean remains silent. Then, the reports begin. Not from radar, not from satellites, from people. In the hours surrounding Valentich's disappearance, over 20 civilians report seeing strange lights over the Bass Strait. A farmer near Cape Otway, tending fences just after sunset, tells police he saw a green light hovering above the coastline. Moments later, he spotted a small plane beneath it. The two moved together until both vanished. A fisherman in Apollo Bay reports a fast-moving object that darted across the sky in silence, glowing with a phosphorescent sheen. He said it disappeared upward, not down. A family walking along the beach south of Melbourne claimed they watched a glowing orb floating over the water. They thought it was a flare, until it hovered for over 5 minutes. None of these people knew Frederick Valentich. None of them were looking for attention, and all of them described the same detail. A green light, moving, silent, controlled. It matched Valentich's final words. It has a green light. It's orbiting me now. Some called it a coincidence. Others called it delusion. But the timing was exact. These sightings continued for days, then weeks, some credible, some fantastical. The military didn't respond, but the story had already left the radar room. It was in the papers, in the cafes, on the radios, and in the sky. When the search was called off, the Australian Department of Transport launched an internal investigation. The goal was simple on paper: determine why a healthy 20-year-old pilot in a functional aircraft disappeared mid-flight under clear conditions. It wasn't simple. Investigators combed through Valentich's flight plan, training history, and radio transcripts. They interviewed his instructors, family, and friends. They reviewed weather data, radar logs, and emergency frequency recordings. After 3 months, the official report was published. The reason for the disappearance of the aircraft is unknown. That sentence, sitting bluntly on page 2 of the findings, confirmed what many already feared. The authorities had no idea what happened. Still, the report offered a working theory, one that would be quoted, debated, and eventually dismantled. According to investigators, Valentich may have become disoriented, possibly flying upside down, confusing the reflection of his own lights on the ocean surface for an unidentified object. In this state, he might have entered a spiral descent, leading to a fatal crash into the Strait. It sounded plausible until it didn't. There were problems. First, the Cessna 182L that Valentich flew had a gravity-fed fuel system. Inverted flight causes engine failure within seconds. Valentich's aircraft remained airborne and responsive for at least 6 minutes after the first transmission. Second, his tone wasn't panicked or confused. He spoke clearly, described what he saw in detail. He used terms like orbiting and stationary. Third, and most damning, he said, "It's not an aircraft." What disoriented pilot would say that? And then there was the metallic noise. 17 seconds of strange grinding interference, captured live, logged by flight service, and still publicly available. Some said it sounded like scraping metal, others like mechanical distortion. But one thing was clear: it wasn't normal. Despite these contradictions, the report stood. The final verdict: cause unknown. The public didn't accept it. By early 1979, the case of Frederick Valentich had spread far beyond Australia. International newspapers ran headlines like, "Pilot vanishes after UFO encounter," "Voice from the sky, then silence," "Green light takes plane, no trace found," radio shows replayed the audio clip. TV interviews featured his father, Guido Valentich, who insisted his son had not hallucinated and that he had warned of such an encounter weeks before. "He told me," Guido said, "if a UFO ever came close, he wouldn't run. He'd try to understand." That quote was printed across the globe. It turned a mystery into myth. But for skeptics, there were other ideas. Some believed Valentich had faked the crash, that he staged his own disappearance. They pointed to the extra fuel he carried, the vague passenger plan, the fascination with UFOs. But no body was found, no sightings, no contact, no motive. No one simply vanishes, unless they're forced to. Then, nearly 34 years later, something changed. In 2012, an amateur historian walking the shoreline of Flinders Island, deep within the Bass Strait, stumbled across a rusted fragment of aircraft wreckage. Bent metal, riveted aluminum, no paint. But the dimensions matched the wing of a Cessna 182L. The rivet pattern matched. The model matched. There was no serial number. Still, local press picked up the story. Photos were taken. Speculation reignited. For the first time in over 3 decades, there was something tangible. But then, silence. The wreckage was turned over to authorities. No forensic identification was released. No confirmation. No denial. To this day, that fragment remains in a private collection, unclassified, untouched. It may be the only piece of Valentich ever recovered, or it may be just another ghost. More than 4 decades have passed. The Bass Strait still carries aircraft across its dark waters. Pilots still cross its invisible highways, their eyes flicking from compass to radio to sky. The waves continue to churn. The radar signals bounce off invisible currents. Nothing has changed. And yet, something has never been the same. Because somewhere beneath its surface, or perhaps far beyond it, the fate of Frederick Valentich remains frozen in time. His disappearance was not the first in the region, but it was the one that left no margin for error, no wreckage, no signals, no second chances. It challenged not just aviation safety, but our understanding of what it means to vanish. It wasn't war, it wasn't sabotage, it wasn't chaos. It was a moment, recorded, confirmed, and unresolved. No black box, no debris field, no distress call, just a calm voice, and an end that came too soon. Valentich's name became a touchstone, not only in ufology, but in aviation history. Flight schools study the case. Investigators reference it. It is taught not for what it revealed, but for what it concealed. Over the years, documentaries recreated the moment. Podcasts analyzed each word of the transmission. Animators reimagined the final 17 seconds of metallic scraping. Reddit threads argued endlessly. Even novels borrowed the plot. The case became bigger than Frederick himself. It became a symbol of modern folklore, where the unknown isn't ancient, it's contemporary, real, documented. To the Valentich family, though, it never became fiction. It remained loss, sharp, cold, unfinished. Guido Valentich never saw closure. He spent years pleading for transparency, writing to departments, seeking independent inquiry. He died without answers. Some believe the plane simply crashed, and that the ocean, vast and powerful, erased all trace. Others think Frederick was abducted. His voice was too calm, too detailed. He never panicked. He described intelligently, observed, not hallucinated. A fringe theory suggests electromagnetic interference, that the Bass Strait is one of several global windows where navigational systems become unreliable. Still others insist it was a hoax. But if it was, where did he go? Why did no one ever hear from him again? In the end, there's no perfect explanation. No theory fits cleanly. Each one leaves something behind, a doubt, a contradiction, a missing piece. We live in an era where aircraft are tracked by satellites, phones ping towers, and cockpit data is streamed live. But Valentich's story reminds us, even now, we can lose someone. Entire airliners vanish in the modern world. We've seen it again. MH370, Amelia Earhart. Disappearances that defy protocol, search grids, and logic. But Valentich, he left a voice, and that voice haunts. It's hovering above me. It's not an aircraft. These words live on, not just because they were recorded, but because they were the last. In a world obsessed with data and proof, the Valentich case reminds us that mystery still exists, that silence can be louder than a scream, that sometimes the absence of evidence is not absence at all, but a challenge, a question. And maybe the answer doesn't lie in radar, in wreckage, or even in tape. Maybe it lies in the space between what we know and what we cannot bear to believe.